The Reedy Creek lawsuit is back in the news this week, and we're going to catch everybody up on that. But first, also in the news this week are magic keys. Some reasonably good news, some perhaps not so good. In the category of reasonably good news, if you were a dream key holder, you remember those? If you were a dream key holder, you probably were included in a class action lawsuit filed against the Disney company. Now that suit is over. They didn't lose, but they did settle, which is, in the case of a class action suit, not unlike a loss, in so much as they are going to have to pay a large settlement fee. And on that, the other day, an email was sent to all of us detailing that settlement. To the victors of this suit, we are to receive $67 each, a sum which I think we can all agree is pretty small, especially when you consider all the trouble that the subject of that lawsuit has caused and continues to cause today. That trouble, of course, being the reservation system. So to get that $67, if you're a dream key holder, that is. By the way, dream key holders only. No other magic keys are involved in this suit. This is just for people who had the dream key. If you want to collect on that $67, you don't need to do anything. You just sit back and wait for that check to come to you. If you want to opt out, which is your option, if you want to opt out of that, meaning you don't get the check and you stay out of that lawsuit, there's a website that you can go to. You can get more details about the settlement. Plus, there's an FAQ, all kinds of information there, and that is also where you would opt out. Now, one of the things that I find interesting about the details of this suit, something that we can learn, is exactly roughly how many dream key holders there were, based on the settlement details. The total settlement was for $9,500,000. It's also mentioned that the attorneys for the plaintiff can collect up to, but no more than, 25% of that settlement amount. Just over $7 million for all of the dream key holders to split up. $7.1 million divided by $67 leaves us at just over 106,000 dream key holders. Now that sounds like a lot, 106,000, that seems like a lot, but it's actually, I don't think it is, at least relatively speaking. Pre-COVID, back in 2019, there was an estimated 1 million total annual pass holders. Now it's not known how those 1 million are distributed amongst the different passes. There was the Signature, Signature Plus, Deluxe, and the SoCal Pass, I believe. Now, we don't know, as I mentioned, what the distribution is, but I think it's a safe bet, a safe guess to say that the Signature and Signature Plus passes combined probably amounted to at least a quarter of the total passes sold. That leaves us at 250,000 annual passes. So what does that mean? What can we learn from that? I'm not sure, actually. We can say at least that Disney throttled back the amount of passes sold, magic keys. And we could say that they did that intentionally as opposed to them just not selling as many as they thought they would because people chose not to. We have to assume this is intentional because they haven't even been selling passes for going on, 6 months now? They're not even for sale. So that's Disney throttling back. Now, is that 100,000 versus the 250,000 before, is that better? Financially speaking, I don't know. That's a good question. Again, we keep hearing that the Disney parks are doing pretty well. Disney is very proud of Disney parks. They're doing well financially, at least relative to how the rest of the Disney company is doing, obviously. So is that the reason why there are now fewer magic key holders than there were annual pass holders? Is Disney happy with how things have gone or how things are going? Actually, in this case, I don't think so. I think that they do want to do better. They're going to want to sell a few more, I believe. In fact, I believe that there's a reasonable chance that we could see them sell them again as soon as this Christmas season, as soon as not now exactly, but closer to the actual Christmas break, that 2-week stretch where all the annual passes will be blocked. You see, in their ongoing effort to sort of finesse what type of guests are getting into the park and when, and this is something that they've actually been very open about, outspoken about even. Seems like every earnings call, you hear some suit talking about the average guest spend per guest per visit. It almost seems like they're kind of obsessed with it, and to their detriment, that they have forgotten some of the other things they should be looking at or concerned with. Then you've got Disney Parks president Josh D'Amaro talking about Disney suffering from, and this is his quote, an unfavorable attendance mix at the Disneyland Resort, specifically Disneyland. By the way, unfavorable attendees mix is code for the wrong guests are coming to the park. Guests who aren't spending enough money. They want guests who spend more money per visit. And then, of course, you have the constant massaging of the reservation system in an effort to turn the local frequent annual pass holder, the person who comes to the park often, try to convert that guest into a weekday visitor as opposed to the weekends so that they can make more room on the weekends for the single day ticket holder, the guests coming in from out of town, to make it more comfortable and easy for them to visit the park. Seems fair, but it's also, that's an effort to try to get those guests. They feel like those are the guests who spend more money per visit. And that is still happening to this day. Right now, that's happening, and it's something that we talk about often in our monthly State of Disneyland reports. But I feel like through all of this, they are finally, slowly coming around to the idea that they may need annual pass holders a little more than they thought they did. So I believe they're going to try to lure more annual pass holders in during the holiday season, but not just at random, not just in general. They're going to try to finesse this in a way to get just the right specific kind of guest to buy that annual pass. And that is guests who buy just the top tier pass, just the Inspire key, and perhaps maybe the Believe key as well. And they want to get that guest who is probably going to buy a single day ticket or a multi-day ticket during the holiday season, during that blockout period, right before Christmas and right after Christmas. And then their goal is to take that guest who bought a single day ticket and convert them, have them upgrade to an annual pass. Now, again, I think it's just going to be Inspire and Believe, probably not Enchant or Imagine, because I feel like they feel like that's the kind of guest who is there just to show up and not actually spend a lot of money in the parks. They feel like the guests who have more disposable income, like the guest who might purchase the highest, tier pass, is the one that they want in the park. Now, while I do expect to see at least some kind of change in terms of the Magic Key system, the Magic Key policy, one thing I do not expect them to change is this ridiculous idea of trying to outthink the system, to overthink the system, to outsmart the game. I do not expect them to stop with the reservation system, nor do I expect them to stop selling Genie Plus, not anytime soon. In spite of the fact that every single problem that the parks are facing today with regard to operations and guest satisfaction, every single one of those problems can be traced back to those two policies, the reservation system and Genie Plus. And every one of those problems that Disney faces, every single one could be solved immediately if they were to just end the reservation system and to stop selling Genie Plus. No, I think they're going to continue to be really stubborn about this and to try to solve all these little problems that they keep facing with more Band-Aids instead of, doing what is really needed, and that's, like surgery. They need to extract something. In just over a week, Bob Iger intends to hold a virtual town hall for all of the Disney cast and employees. The town hall is being billed as an opportunity for Iger to discuss all of the recent achievements by the Disney company and to discuss future building opportunities. Josh D'Amaro is going to be there, as well as a bunch of other Disney executives, and the hope is that something useful and informative will come out of that town hall meeting. I, however, am not quite optimistic about that happening. And I believe that because Iger held a town hall meeting just like this, actually exactly 1 year ago to the date that they're having this one upcoming. He held a town hall meeting just after he took over again. And there was a lot of optimism at that. We thought this was going to be like a revelatory type situation to get the troops rallied up and get them excited. But it wound up being kind of nothing. It wound up being a lot of non-answers, sort of vague dancing around things. And he didn't really commit to really anything. He didn't commit to anything. I think the most notable thing that he discussed was talking about the campus that they were building in Florida, and that he said that was going to keep going in spite of the issues that they were having with the state at the time. That eventually did get canceled, by the way. So it's my expectation that we're going to get more of the same. It's just kind of vague non-answers, but I do like that language of future building opportunities. I'm not sure if that's Disney's press saying that or the news source where I learned this from. I'm not sure who's saying that, but I mean that's what I'm going to leave a little sliver of hope, a little sliver of optimism that they do talk about. Obviously, the thing we're thinking about here at Disneyland is Disneyland Forward, but they got a lot of expansion. What's the word I'm looking for? I don't know if it's plans. Plans aren't the right word, but stuff that they're doing at Walt Disney World in Florida. They don't have any plans, but they aspire to do stuff, so maybe he'll talk about that. But we'll see. Certainly, I don't expect anything like the Avatar experience. And finally, let's talk about Reedy Creek. Things have been quiet, actually, on the Reedy Creek front for a little while now, pretty much ever since the state of Florida took over. There was the story a little while back where apparently a bunch of employees just up and quit, like en masse. Actually, I didn't even know that there were a vast number of employees working for the Reedy Creek district. I thought it was just the board. Then there are lawsuits pending, of course. There's been some back and forth between Disney and the state of Florida, but we're still waiting for any of this to see the inside of a courtroom. So those issues are still very much up in the air, but that hasn't stopped Florida's governor, Ron DeSantis, from claiming victory. In a recent interview, he pretty much said just that. When discussing the Parental Rights in Education Act and Disney's response to it, one which obviously eventually led to the state of Florida taking over Reedy Creek, DeSantis said, and I quote, "So we fought back against Disney, we had a big battle with them, and we won the battle against Disney." But did they though? I don't know. They tried to dissolve Reedy Creek. That didn't work. They couldn't dissolve it. So instead, they just took it over. And in so doing, DeSantis believes that they may have changed the attitude across the country that governments may have towards big business. Per DeSantis, now they can say, well, gee, I don't want to end up like Disney. People may fight back from the right now. So I think we helped kind of refocus business and America in a better way. I think it was going off the rails. Now on this, I think I could agree that the state's efforts against Disney could be sort of a rallying point or the beginning of, let's say, right-leaning governments to make their voices heard against big business. See Target and Bud Light, for example. Both of those situations occurred not long after the situation that developed with Disney and the state of Florida. And there could be a perceived connection there. The Target boycott did appear to have some effect on Target's business and even their stock price. The Target president, CEO, he actually conceded this a little bit, though their stock actually has rallied quite a bit as of late. Same for Bud Light. There was a definite negative impact on sales and on the stock price for Anheuser-Busch. But again, they have rallied. Bud actually is trading higher today than it did just prior to the whole boycott situation. So the net effect is nil when it comes to the stock price. The Disney, or I should say the Anheuser-Busch stock has now a net effect of zero. I don't know about sales. I don't know how sales are doing, but there's at least that. By the way, they also just recently signed a pretty major sponsorship deal with UFC, with the Ultimate Fighting Championship. I mean, as right an organization as you might find outside of a government, let's say. So that's kind of amazing. That's kind of impressive that they were able to pull that off. But that aside, getting the focus put back on Disney and state of Florida, those lawsuits aren't settled yet. So there is no victory, no real victory to claim on either side, though Disney hasn't tried to claim any kind of victory. Disney has asked the courts to undo the steps made by the state of Florida on First Amendment grounds, that they feel like the state of Florida violated Disney's First Amendment rights. And some would say that they have a pretty good case. And there's actually a hearing coming up scheduled for mid-December. The state of Florida has asked the court to dismiss that particular case, that First Amendment case. In that suit, Disney alleges that Ron DeSantis and the state of Florida are acting in retaliation. It's a retaliatory move on their part based on Disney's response to the Parental Rights in Education Act, something which DeSantis does not appear in any kind of hurry to rebut or to challenge. He's actually, been openly saying that is the case. Matter of fact, that most recent quote that we, were discussing earlier, that could be seen as an admission of that point, that he did this thing with Reedy Creek because of what Disney did. So if the case that Disney's brought can be won or lost based on whether or not the courts agree that DeSantis' actions were retaliatory, I feel like that's a no-brainer. But the fact that it sounds and appears that easy suggests to me that there's significantly more to this. It would be foolish. It would be unwise. Any good lawyer would tell DeSantis to shut the hell up if that were really what this is about. Meanwhile, the Central Florida Tourism Oversight District, that is the new name by which it is known, the name that replaced Reedy Creek, they filed a notice this week that they intend to depose. They want to question Disney Parks and Resorts officials. They want to learn how did Reedy Creek operate prior to the changeover. and what their interactions were with the Disney company, which is interesting because, as I understand it, Reedy Creek is supposed to be separate from the Disney company. They are not supposed to be one and the same, though I think any casual observer of this situation would clearly state, yeah, Disney was running Reedy Creek. I think everybody just understood that to be the case. That was, commonly understood. And that alone is interesting because that could be the point that the state of Florida is going to try to make in court. It's a fascinating story, a very fascinating story, and I cannot wait to find out how this turns out. I've been following this now for what has it been? It's been like a year and a half now, and we're still not there. But I'm really interested to find out how this winds up. In the meantime, let's observe that Disney has taken this opportunity to sort of educate the state of Florida on what Disney brings to the table. Disney commissioned a study from Oxford Economics to shine a light on Disney's impact on the state of Florida, both in terms of jobs and just basic, economics. In the fiscal year 2022, for example, the Disney company has generated $40.3 billion in economic impact for the state of Florida. They have contracted with 2,500 small businesses, which, let me add here, that's probably that's the part that I really find the most impressive, that I'm most interested in with regard to Disney's working relationship with the state. It's just not about employing people and paying taxes. It's about the symbiotic nature that they have in all of the other areas around the Walt Disney World. Small business, in my opinion, is the cornerstone of this country, the economic cornerstone. Big business obviously gets all the recognition and all the attention, and things seem to be consolidating more and more these days, away from that. But it's small business that keeps the machine going. And really, I feel like small business is the very definition of the American dream. And if you are really interested in the American dream and in personal freedom and financial freedom, and you want to live that American dream, then you have to support small business. The further that we get, I'm going to go off on a rant here, the further that we get away from small business, the more it becomes just about big business. You get a class distinction there, big business and then just the little guy. There's nothing in the middle. So I digress. I apologize. The study also indicates that 263,000 jobs, both direct and indirect, are a result of Disney's presence at Walt Disney World. $3.1 billion in state and local taxes are generated. For those who want to say that perhaps Disney isn't paying taxes or not paying their share, that was an argument that was being made early on in the whole Reedy Creek thing, is that they thought that this was a tax dodge for Disney, which, by the way, big business does tax dodges all the time. That's nothing new there. But they were trying to say that Disney wasn't paying taxes. I mean, that's wild. That's wild. No, they are one of the biggest taxpayers in the entire state. This one is interesting. If Disney were to leave the state of Florida, their unemployment rate would drop. Well, or go up. Yeah, it would go up. Currently, they are 21st in the nation in unemployment, right about in the middle-ish, top middle. If Disney were to leave, they would become the second. They would have the second highest unemployment rate. Now, having observed that specifically and all the other things, noting that those are impressive numbers, I actually don't think it matters, even a little bit. At least not to DeSantis and the state of Florida. That study may be effective in terms of public opinion. It may, generate a little bit more goodwill towards the Disney company from the public. But there are two major flaws with that idea with respect to the specific fight that Disney is having with the state of Florida. One, Disney is never going to leave the state of Florida. Not ever. Surely, yes, it would be bad for the state if Disney did, but it would also be very, very bad for the Disney company. Income that they could never possibly reproduce or recreate in a timely fashion. It would take a decade, at least a decade, for them to close it, build another park, assuming that would be the goal, is to build another park. Where would you build it? What's better than Florida? Where? So while the idea that the state of Florida owes its unemployment rate success to the Disney company, while that's accurate, it is pointless. There is no threat. In the category of things that are threatless, that Disney moving is of no threat. Disney isn't going to leave, And the state of Florida needn't worry. They're not worried that Disney is going to leave. Secondly, I don't think that the state of Florida cares about any of that other stuff either. They're in it for the fight. Whether or not they're right, that's up for debate. But the idea that the state might be influenced by this study, that's just foolish. If that were the case, if they were to change their position based on the good that the Disney company brings to the table, that would be bending the knee. That's something that DeSantis mentioned also in that other interview, that he doesn't want to bend the knee to the Disney company or to any big business. They owe them, their fealty because they generate all this revenue and employment. And that is something that he's been very firm on, very vocal about, no matter how useful Disney is to the state of Florida. But that, again, is part of what makes this fight so interesting. Yes, the Disney company is a very large, profitable company that does a lot of good for the state of Florida. Yes, the state of Florida probably was out of line in their reaction to Disney's reaction to the Parental Rights and Education Act. But to that I say, so what? Both of you, so what? But the fight continues, and I feel like it probably will see the inside of a courtroom just based on the tenacity of DeSantis and the state, even though it doesn't appear to be helping his presidential campaign at all. And I feel like he was going to use that. It's interesting now that I think about it. I feel like the plan was for him to use this fight with Disney as the catapult to launch him to the White House. But it turns out people don't really care. They don't care too much about DeSantis' fight, even as proud as he is for destroying, woke culture, which is something that, again, those are his words, more or less. I'm paraphrasing, I think, but that's his whole thing. In general, I don't think anybody really cares too much about that. I mean, not enough anyway to make him president. He is now 5th, I think, in the list of candidates for the Republican nomination. Personally, I would just love it if everybody could just get back to doing what they're good at. DeSantis running his state, which he was very good at. People loved the way he was running the state, and he can keep on doing that, and Disney can keep on running Disney World. They were very good. They were very good at running Walt Disney World. That can't be argued. I don't know how good the Central Florida Tourism Oversight District is going to do at running. Well, they don't run the parks per se, but the infrastructure around it. I don't know how good they are at it, but Disney was pretty good at it. Let them do it. Everybody just go back to what they were doing. Am I being naive? Is that just foolish to think? I don't know. I'll leave it to you guys. And then follow us on Instagram @_FreshBaked, on Twitter @FreshBakedDisney, that's fresh with no E, and on TikTok @FreshBakedDisney. If you like our show and want to show you support, please do consider joining our Patreon campaign at patreon.com/FreshBaked. And also follow us if you aren't already on our main channel, our home channel, Fresh Baked. There's a link in the description. There's a link in the thing that I'm showing you right now. Hopefully there's a link right there in that general vicinity right there. Click that thing, subscribe to our channel. And then thanks for watching, everybody. We love you. Be safe out there. Be kind to one another. Fresh Baked.